right, this week we're talking about business strategy. Now, it seems weird to be talking about business strategy this late in the course, but there's really a reason for it. The reason is we need to understand the basics of purchasing, and now we want you to understand where it fits in the grand scheme of things. So when people talk about business strategy, they usually talk about things like mission and strategy. We're going to break that down. What does it mean? Also here, vision is the same thing as strategy, but whatever. It works. Then how your company runs. We've been talking about align to the organization. Well, the organization strategy can drive a lot of how we do in purchasing. So they go together. So if competitive advantage is something we should be concerned about, and it is if you're in a capitalist environment and capitalist economy, you need to think about competitive advantage. Well, how does purchasing play the role? You now have that information. Now let's talk about competitive advantage and how the things can change over time. And then, what does it mean to have a global operations strategy and different scenarios there? So, big time today, understand your organization strategy first and then align. And when it changes, you need to change. If you're out of alignment, things are going to get real ugly pretty quick. And what I mean by that is a lot of unnecessary meetings, a lot of unnecessary review of things. So get aligned first and all things will fall in play. When teaching business strategy in general, we talk about operations strategy, or when I taught supply chain courses, we start with this concept. What is a mission? What is your company's mission? What is any organization's mission? You're going to do some research on that later. But missions should explain what you're going to do in the future. It's the why you do what you do, not the how. And it also establishes a purpose for your team, for your company, for your organization. Why do you even exist? Now, yes, companies exist because people want to make a profit, but profits are happy results, really. When you line up your why, and your why has value, and people want to join that and want to buy your products, then you end up with profit. It also will help provide boundaries on what you do and what you don't do. For example, I work for a winery, and nowhere does it say in our mission that we're going to make beer, and we don't, because it's not in our goals. Now, missions translate in from why to how, and that's a strategy. Strategy explain how are you going to go about doing that. So what this could really look like, you say, well, my mission is to get my certificate, or my mission is to get my AA degree or 4-year degree, whatever the case may be. Well, strategy is, how do you go about doing that? It's part of planning, part innovation. Is the actions to help put your mission at play. In business, what that looks like is the company will have one shared mission, but then every function or department within the organization will have their own strategy on how to achieve that. Now, these strategies should align, and they should work together, and they should also enhance the company's strengths and mitigate the risks. And what I mean by that is, if the company is really good about providing really good fast service, then there should be mitigation to prevent that service from being slow. So mission, think of why, strategy of how. And there are millions of books out there. Literally, I'm not even exaggerating. You can go on Amazon or any bookstore, library, look up company missions, company strategy development. There are consultants that make a ton of money just helping companies nail these two things down. So, where do we even start? How do we get our mission? Well, there's a lot of brainstorming. And what this slide shows is mission is a accumulation of what your customers' expectations are, what environment you're working in, not the environment that we talk about the wind and the rain and the sunshine, but the political environment. It can be the economic environment. It's also your organization's owners and leaders' philosophy and values. One of the things that was very important to me when switching companies was I needed to understand the mission of the organization, but also what were their core values. What did they hold most important? Because it will change the direction of the mission. Having worked for a Fortune 100 corporation and watching their values and mission change as CEOs switched over, it went from a very location-centric, community-based values and missions to stock price and cost cutting. So it can be wearing on employees if their philosophy and values don't align. Also, answering that question of what kind of growth do you want to see year over year? We're talking sales growth, financial growth, so on, and profitability. And also, that sustainability and public image side also feeds into mission. In the end, answering the question of why do we exist and do we put any benefit to society? Is a simple benefit that we provide great products, or does it extend further than that? Does it extend to the community in which you serve? Does it extend anywhere else besides the realm of profitability? Each company will have a different mission statement, have a different focus and a scope. And sometimes it's not what they say, but what they don't say that means the most. So, may not say, I want to be the best. They say, we provide good products. That can say a lot about a company. They don't want to be the best. They're just okay with being okay. So the focus on continuous improvement may not be there. So reading between the lines, but also looking at what do they want to be or aspire to be? Why do they exist? And then saying how they actually put it together. Sometimes it doesn't match, but it's a good starting point to understand what a company does. So the output of that whole brainstorming function and finding your mission is the mission statement or mission call of the organization. Now, the organization's mission is the input to the organization's strategy. The strategy is how do we go about putting together the mission? If the organization's mission is to benefit the community, there should be some sort of community outreach side of the organization. Generally speaking, what it translated into is different departments and functions. If we want to have fiscal responsibility, finance will have goals related to that strategy accomplishment. What that looks like further is understanding what is the environment, again, that goes into the mission, and then that strategy. How do we become who we say we're going to become? And let's align ourselves to those metrics and goals. What that looks like is what does it mean to be good at what we want to be good at? What are the key success factors? If we want to grow year over year, what does that mean? 10% growth? Okay, that's a number we can work towards. What does that look like? Then put the people in place to help you get you there. People oftentimes are referred to as the greatest asset of an organization. If companies say that, challenge them. How? How are they the greatest asset to your organization, and how do you show it? Now, putting the right staff and the right resources in play can help those key success factors really be successful and help mitigate risk. If innovation is a big part of the strategy, there may need to be more resources or finances in research and development. That's another example there. Then the next step is to take it and integrate as much of the organization's operations management into other activities, breaking down the silos of the traditional functional side of the business into collaborative teamwork. So if we add together the operations strategy, like how we're going to do business, how we're going to make the products, how we're going to buy things, look at what we're doing competitively, we can then increase productivity by eliminating those silos that prevent the organization from functioning. And at the end, we'll increase flow of products, profitability, and ultimately our customers will see the value because we're listening to them and we're doing what we're being asked to do in making products and services that they want to buy at a lower rate. We generally talk about competitive advantage. We're talking about, are you cheaper? Is your goal to be the low price leader? Are you quicker? Are you speedy? Do you deliver faster than anybody possibly can? And we're not just talking about logistics. Are you responsive? Are you better? It could be better quality, better equipped. Generally, we're talking about quality. And you see that these circles overlap. It's a Venn diagram of sorts. Some companies say that they could be cheaper and quicker. Okay. Could be the low price leader and fast. Understand that. Could be quicker and better. Better quality, quicker delivery, quicker response time, quicker service, so on. You can be cheaper and better, but that's very rare. And sometimes arguably companies will say, we're the fastest, best, cheapest organization around. In reality, they do one or two better than the third. They don't match all the time. And over time, your competitive advantage and your position where you want to be will change. I've seen it in the Gallo organization when they were making cheap table wines. That was the goal, cheaper. The focus was, well, let's improve the quality. Let's make it better. And they segmented out the business, so they have cheaper wines and more expensive premium wines and liquor. Now, quicker is the other kind of concept. Haven't seen that focus yet, but it's a little hard to speed up the aging of a grape. Now, it will change over time, and just like products will change. And so will our strategy and how we purchase products, how we store products, and how we price products. So this is a bit dated, but I love it for that very reason. This is the product life cycle, very typical product life cycle. You have the introduction phase, where you're just breaking out a new product into the market. You don't even know who's going to buy it, who's not. And this is from 2011. In that time frame, Twitter was in the introduction phase. Sales and advertising through them was starting to increase. They was able to make minor adjustments, even make major adjustments, just so the customers will catch on and be able to use it. Same thing with Xbox 360s and iPods, and even internet search engines fall into the growth phase. A lot of adaptation, looking for ways to attract new customers. It was taking off in the market. It isn't until the maturity phase where you start to think about severe cost reduction, stability. This maturity phase can last a long time. Cars are in the maturity phase. However, the electric car can be somewhere between the introduction and growth phase. It's where we are in the decline phase, where cost control is absolutely more critical than maturity. This is where we're not only eating cost reductions, but we're also whittling away at profit margins. It's the point where things are going away. And the goal of companies is to replace any kind of product that's going away with new ones. So analog TVs, the big old tube televisions, I don't even think they make them anymore. They were replaced at first by plasmas, then LCDs, now LEDs. Who knows what's next? So products, depending on the type of product, the industry, can change in the trajectory of the life cycle. But our purchasing strategies also have to change. If something's in the decline phase, like I said, critical cost cutting, cheapening of sorts. If it's in the growth phase, maybe I'll pay a higher price, but I'm looking for that cost reduction when I hit the maturity side. So being aware that things change over time, and so will your competitive advantage. Your mission in your organization may not change, but your strategy might. So be prepared. Breaking it down even further, look at things like shorter production runs, higher production costs at introduction. These are things that we'll experience across the board, changes as a life cycle changes and matures and eventually declines. Companies also look outside of the United States for growth opportunities, as well as we've talked about new sources. What about new countries and customers? Well, there's many ways that organizations can go about it. Now, there's global strategy, where there's a high level of cost reduction opportunity, meaning we're capitalizing on standardized products, economies of scale, great stuff. Very low responsiveness to customer needs, but we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck. Companies that have really gone after this are Caterpillar, Otis Elevator, and Texas Instruments, which is now part of Sensata. Then we have organizations that are transnational. Again, high cost reduction focus. And what they do is they move material, people, ideas to other nations, and you start building economies of scale there for local consumption and cross-cultural learning. Coca-Cola is the king of this. McDonald's, I'm surprised they're not on here in this category. They moved them down into another area. But Coca-Cola and Nestle are the ones that are most part of this. Now, Nestle is part of PepsiCo, so they're both there. Multi-domestic strategy. You're looking at an organization that goes into a foreign market by franchising joint ventures, and that's why McDonald's is here. You have them organizations where they have ownership in the other country. There's a franchise that they pay fees back to the mothership, so to speak. Heinz has done this. Hard Rock Cafe, that's where you see them all over the place. So on. Then lastly, we have an international strategy where it's simply a straight importation and exportation. Now, Harley-Davidson is listed here, but that is changing as they move a lot of their production out of the United States. So, there's different ways to get in, and we talked about barriers to global sourcing. This is the other side. If we make changes to our global strategy as an organization, I've used examples in the past of, I was told in the early 2000s that we need to buy a certain amount of percentage from particular countries. The organization made a strategic change. Our sourcing strategies also needed to. So there's a lot that goes into business strategy. And there could be different layers. There can be a just domestic strategy and a global strategy. There's an operations strategy. It should line up with the marketing strategy, or we're going to be in conflict. They all the combined strategies between different functions and departments should roll into achieving the mission at hand. So today we covered a lot in a short amount of time. There's a big difference between mission and strategy, the why and the how. We also looked at what kind of competitive advantages are out there and how that can impact your strategy. And then lastly, we talked about globalization, because globalization is a real thing and we need to address it in some way, shape, or form whenever we're talking about sourcing or developing our organization strategy. That about wraps it up for today. But if you have questions or you want to talk about business strategy, let's talk. It is a great topic, tons of research out there. And like I mentioned, lots of job opportunities if you're interested in consulting. It takes time running businesses and understanding the difference, not only between developing mission and strategy, but the importance for having them. All right, I look forward to hearing from you and participating with you in a discussion forum. Have a great week.